professional. Now, I want to blame Governor Walker for this because I was thinking of saying something about the University of Arkansas and taking Brett Whelan on. You know, you came in time just to be in Wisconsin the day after a Packer game. Well, the day after the Packers lose is a very grim time here in Wisconsin. But it's a very strange time when the Packers play one of our rivals and they play for a tie. And you know what a tie is like? It's supposedly like, you know, kissing your sister. We're not going to make any Arkansas jokes about that. Governor Huckabee speak earlier this year, as I mentioned with Governor Walker, and I have to say that you're in for a treat because, for several things. Number one, he is a great human being. He is a wonderful speaker. And I think that what makes him, you know, such an interesting political and media figure is that Governor Huckabee speaks from the heart, which is so unusual in American politics today, as you know. This is not a political event. But Governor Huckabee, I have to tell you, has come here at great personal inconvenience and you know, at expense to be with us because he supports what we are doing here tonight. And I think that we are very, very grateful that you would do that because, it shows who you are and where your heart is. And I just want to let you know, before I introduce Governor Huckabee officially and turn over the podium, that the governor has to leave very, very quickly because he's got to get back to Arkansas to be with his family for Thanksgiving. There are people apparently at your house that you haven't even seen yet. So understand that all of us understand what comes first tonight. This is all about being families and supporting families. And there are very few people in this country I know who are more eloquent on the subject of families, family values, and what it means to be a loving family than Governor Mike Huckabee.
Tried to get you to stop clapping, and I got up and I wanted you to do some more. There's the difference between us, Governor. I eat it up. I really do. Okay, so let's get this out of the way. Charlie, the introduction. Normally, when a person comes to speak, the person doing the introduction does not get up and rub in the fact that we ended up with a football coach that hasn't won a single SEC game all year long. Nada. Goose egg. Zero. We play LSU on Friday. I try to be an optimist, but the worst of all of this is that some of the people who have already now arrived at my house before I get there include my brother-in-law, an LSU graduate. Only God could intervene and help the Razorbacks to win that game. And I don't even think he's interested in the Razorbacks. If you would like him back to coach, we'll make arrangements. He's probably related to someone in the room. Excuse me. But by the way, that comment about the kissing the sister and this like, we don't say that about ourselves in Arkansas. We say that in Mississippi, if a couple get a divorce, are they still brother and sister? And in Mississippi, they say things far worse than that about us, so it's okay. Now that I'm thoroughly insulted, I think I shall leave. But I do want to say what a real joy it is to be here, and I mean that with all sincerity because of what you're gathered here to be part of. RJ, I can't even begin to express how impressed, amazed, and grateful I am that you were willing not to hear the vision, but to do something with it. A lot of people have moments I think there are moments where God shows up, as Forrest Gump so eloquently said. And when God shows up and he tells us something, it's easy to just think that it was too much pepperoni pizza the night before. That somehow, surely, God would not be speaking to me, wouldn't have something special for me to do. And so many times I think our greatest opportunities in life are missed because we assumed that surely he was speaking to someone else and we were just overhearing the conversation by mistake. And a conversation that RJ had with a 20-year-old girl from Georgia, it just happened to be across the table from him at lunch, that led to a series of events that brought us here in this room tonight. If you stop and think about it, it's pretty remarkable. That the vision that RJ had to reach the lives of orphan children came because a 20-year-old college student was herself obedient to God when he said, ask that man to go on a mission trip to Honduras. And he said yes. And what he saw there changed his life and gave him a vision for doing something that I found to be remarkable. And believe me, I've seen a lot of Christian ministries. I've seen a lot of just humanitarian efforts around the world. Many of them Janet and I support. It's the only organization, the World Orphan Fund, the only one that I'm personally acquainted with. Maybe there are others. I just don't know of any. And I know of literally hundreds of good, supportable humanitarian and Christian relief organizations. I've never seen one where 100% of all of the funds raised go directly to the actual care of the people for whom it is intended. Let's be honest, most of us would never begrudge if there was a percentage of the proceeds that went to administrative costs or to fundraising activities or to the things that are typically a part of an entity like this. We all understand that. Most every one of us in this room look around. I doubt there is a person here who has not served on a board of a nonprofit organization, humanitarian effort, or something in your church, and you just understand that's part of it. And whether it's 5% or even up to 25%, it is not that unusual, nor is it even somehow a deal breaker if part of the costs go to pay for the administrative functions. And when I found out that 100%, not 98 or 99, but 100%, every last dime goes directly to support the orphans because all of the administrative costs are done by volunteers. There's no effort put on salaries or buildings or even the printing costs, all of which is absorbed by the members of the board. That, my friend, makes you a part of an event that is unique. As I saw the pictures on the screen tonight, I said, how can you not be moved and touched? This very day, Janet showed me, my wife Janet, who's here at the front table, showed me a picture of the daughter and her husband of two of our very best friends in the world. He was my college roommate. He performed my wedding ceremony almost 40 years ago. He and I have been close friends. My wife and his wife are very dear friends and spent this past weekend together. We've been almost inseparable in our bond of relationship, and his daughter and son-in-law are today in China receiving and sent us an email picture of a precious little 11-month-old baby that they are there to adopt and will be bringing back to the United States and raising that child, because this child was just an infant. That's probably President Obama. He wants to talk about Obamacare. You know, he's on this kick. He wants us to talk about Obamacare at the Thanksgiving table. Tell him it's not happening at my house. I suggest you talk about the World Orphan Fund. Now, there's a conversation for you. But they showed us this picture. This little girl, she's just beautiful. But she's a special needs child. I want you to understand how powerful love can be, because My friend's daughter and her husband are there to retrieve this little girl who, when she was born, was left at the base of a lamppost and abandoned. And someone picked her up, and she was in an orphanage. And she's going to come back to a loving, prosperous family who will provide her the best health care, the best education, the best kind of living environment, rescued by the grace of God and the loving arms of people who said, we can do that. I'm not suggesting that you fly off to China tonight to pick up a baby. Some of you, if you did that, you'd get some weird looks from the rest of the family at Thanksgiving. Oh, don't worry, we're not going to be at Thanksgiving this year, Mom. Don't set aside a plate for us. We're taking off halfway around the world. We're going to China to pick up a baby. It's probably not something you would spring on your parents. Now, my point in all of this is that it requires someone very special to go and retrieve one of those babies, bring them home, adopt them, and raise them as if they were their own, and they will be the moment they bring them home. It will be the chosen child, which is remarkable in itself. And most of us either we're just not in a position where that makes sense for us, or maybe we have so many responsibilities that we wouldn't do justice to the raising of a child. But what if, through the contributions that can be made, we make a significant difference in that child and make sure that that child gets medical attention? It's something as simple as a bed to sleep in or water to drink that doesn't make them sick. And that's why I think that what RJ has envisioned and what he's created, and to think that within less than 2 years, over $500,000 has been raised for the World Orphan Fund. I know organizations that have been in business 20 years, and they've not yet made that kind of impact. And the rapid growth, I believe, is due, first of all, to the remarkable focus that World Orphan Fund has been able to make. The fact that it's not just people collecting checks and then sending them to some international NGO, United Nations fund, and hope that it really actually helps orphans. But I think, RJ, one of the things that you do that is so remarkable, so admirable, and so worthy of support is that volunteers from World Orphan Fund will literally go to the orphanages before a dime goes to them to put their eyeballs on them and to see firsthand, not through some photos that are being sent over the internet, but to see firsthand, does this orphanage really deserve the support that we're going to ask people to give? It's a certification project that I've never heard anything quite like it before. And it should give every donor a sense of confidence that what you give is going to go actually to the children that you intended to go for. There are great relief organizations, but I also have known of some that were sheer scams. They give you a picture of a child, and they tell you this is the child you've adopted, and you think you have, and 300 other people have adopted the same child. That child lived 25 years ago. The child is just a recycled picture, and it's a scam. And 75% of the funds raised go to the organization, and a trifling bit go mostly to take pictures of those kids so they can go back and do more fundraising. And they're not orphan-focused, they're fund-focused. The primary thing is to generate enough funds to provide all the salaries and all of the machinery that goes with it. One thing you can be sure of the World Orphan Fund is most certainly not a government operation. The fact that all the money actually goes to the purpose for which it was intended. That alone Janet and I are the godparents of a beautiful young lady who's now in her 20s. When she was born in the Ukraine, she was abandoned as an orphan, she and her older brother. And by the age of 18 months, she was emaciated, almost at the point of starving. Dear friends of ours, named Bruce and Roxy is from the Ukraine, were there to visit some of her family. They had escaped the Ukraine in some of the worst times of the oppression. And when they saw that little girl, they just couldn't stand the thought of her dying, but she was just weeks away, if not days away, from doing so. They adopted both the little girl and the boy, brought them back, and they asked us to be godparents to the little girl. Now, our friends were Catholic, and we're not. We're evangelical. And it was no small feat to get a New Jersey Catholic church, this is where they live, to allow us to be the godparents. I'm not sure exactly what kind of dispensation is involved in that. But apparently it was an extraordinary ordeal, but our friends just said, no, these are the people we want to be godparents. And apparently the priest had told them, well, that's not the way it works. You're being Catholic. And somehow, whatever credentials we try to present were not exactly overwhelming. But we, by God's grace and the dispensation of somebody way higher than me, were able to be godparents. So we went to the ceremony, and it was remarkable. It reminded me of the scene in Godfather. Remember the scene? And it was Connie's baby? Don't act like you haven't seen Godfather. You may be a largely Christian audience, but you're not that pure, okay? And remember the scene where, you committed, you renounced Satan? Yes, I renounced Satan. And we went through all of that, and I was thinking, I just hope Mo Green doesn't get shot again. It was a very moving ceremony for us. But more than that, I sensed an extraordinary responsibility, and Janet will tell you that from that moment on, we felt like, should anything happen to our friends, Bruce and Roxy, Donnie was going to come and live with us. We were fully committed to accepting that responsibility, and still are. I can't be godparents for every little girl in the world, every little boy in the world. But the thought that you, me, anyone in this room, can make an appreciable difference in the life of a child left at the bottom of a lamppost, or even the child of some teen mother who maybe was used as a sex slave and got pregnant through no decision of her own, and could not keep that child, not because she didn't want to, but because it would interfere with the business that she was in against her own will. It's hard to imagine the human suffering that goes on in our world today, but it's also hard to imagine that we would be indifferent to it. And thank God RJ was not indifferent to it. That he came back with a heart with burden, and he put the match to the fuse of something called the World Orphan Fund. And today there are orphanages all over the world that have been viewed, over 22 of them that have been viewed by people, many of whom are in this room, determined that they are legitimate, that the needs are real, and that the administration of the funds that will be given will actually go to help those kids. And so tonight, the opportunity to give is really an opportunity to be the hand of God to some child who may never know what love is until someone in this room shows it to them. When I was just a little tight, for some reason, I don't know, there's probably some deep psychological reason for this, and I'm sure if there's a psychiatrist in the room, perhaps you can analyze me, and maybe you will. If there are two psychiatrists in the room, then we've got real confusion. Two psychiatrists met in the hall, one said, "You're fine, how am I?" I know. A little slow on the uptake, but But when I was a little guy, for some reason, I just thought my parents were going to drop me off at school and never come back to get me. Maybe I knew myself all too well. I don't know. In the first grade, I got let off at Brookwood Elementary School in Hope, Arkansas, where I went to school. And when school was out, it was like my first week of school, and I came outside. I was supposed to meet, my dad, who was off that day. He was supposed to meet me at the corner and pick me up. And I went out there to the corner. He wasn't there. And I just sat down on the sidewalk and started bawling. I figured he'd probably moved and left no forwarding address. In my later years, I would have understood and even agreed with his decision. I didn't understand why he wasn't there. Well, he was there within like 2 or 3 minutes. And I remember somebody coming up to me and saying, "Little boy, why are you crying?" And I said, "Because my parents aren't here." And I was so afraid of being abandoned. You ever had that feeling? you were a kid, remember if you went maybe shopping with your parents and got separated? And the horror of wondering, are they ever coming back for you? And when we had our 3 children, now they're all grown and have their own children now, but when they were little, just getting separated for a few seconds, I'll never forget the fear, the anxiety. Well, there were a couple of times we thought, this is our chance, let's go. But for the most part, it was an extraordinary anxiety to think of just a few moments of separation. Imagine growing up and never having the parent that we were looking for because you didn't have a parent. At least it was a parent I was looking for, and I had some expectation that one of them would show up. And they did. I cannot imagine living my life never having the expectation that an adult would come for me and would show up because he cared. I can't imagine. Some kids can't imagine anything other than that. And so when I think about what the World Orphan Fund is about, it's really about giving children an expectation that somebody is going to show up with a clean glass of water and maybe some clothes and medical help and a bed to sleep in, and maybe, by the grace of God, even some parents who will adopt them. But even if that doesn't happen, and if it's like the kids in Guatemala, whose country will not allow them to be adopted out into a family, would it be better that they grow up knowing of the expectation that they're still going to have food to eat, clothes to wear, school to attend? Jesus said a lot of things, and I think everything he said was important. I can't think of anything that was unimportant. I can't think of any of the words that he ever uttered that we said, well, that's really not that important. I mean, most of our Bibles, we even take his words, we put them in red letters because we think that that's really important. Because it is. If he said it, it's got to be important. Let's never forget what he said. Better that a millstone be hanged about your neck and drowned in the depths of the sea than for you to offend one of these little ones. And a millstone is a great, big, huge, like cement or concrete, or in the old days, or rock, that was used to grind the grain, heavy enough to crush it over and over. Think about the largest tractor inner tube you could think of, filled with cement, and think of tying that to one's neck and tossing that over into the sea. And I think it's pretty evident the imagery that he was painting was that it's a pretty serious thing to not care for one of these little ones. And he said it would be better if somebody would take a millstone, hang it around your neck, and drown you into the depths of the sea than you would offend one of these little ones. Then he said, inasmuch as you have done it to the least of these, my brethren, you've done it unto me. If Jesus walked into the room tonight, I don't think we'd say, seriously, it's a busy week. You came at a bad time. We'll do a rain check. I only got a couple of minutes, Jesus. Look, if Jesus walked in the room, we'd all want to be front and center. And he said, no, it's not like that. There's an orphan in the room. You're looking at me. There's a hungry child. That's who I am. There's a child without clothes. That's me. Because inasmuch as you have done it to the least of these, my brethren, you've done it unto me. It'd be hard to ignore Jesus. But sometimes it's easy to ignore the people that Jesus says those are the people that he is. I don't pretend to know what's in your heart tonight, because I don't. Nor do I pretend to know what you're capable of giving or doing in relationship to the World Orphan Fund, because I have no idea. I do know that I think God has given RJ a remarkable vision and a plan to carry out that vision. And I have to believe that the purpose for which you've come to this room tonight, certainly not to hear me, but it's because there's something in your heart that tells you that in a land where we have so much and are blessed so wonderfully and richly, that God surely must want us to invest ourselves, our our time and our money into something bigger than ourselves. And it may just be a child, an orphan. Without your love and your support, may not live and may not live very well. I told this story when I was in Wisconsin, gosh, it's been a number of months ago. I close with it tonight. You know, I have a special connection to Wisconsin that you don't even know about. I know the Packers are the team of choice here. I get that. I wouldn't even mention another NFL team while I'm in Wisconsin. I know better than that. What you don't know is that I was actually invited to sing the national anthem at Lambeau Field and was able to do that. And I'm disappointed a lot of you have not mentioned that to me as you came up here. It's been several years ago. But it's one of the signal honors of my life that I was invited to sing the national anthem at Lambeau Field. And some of you are saying, well, I didn't know you sing. I don't. It's just remarkable. People assume if I play the bass guitar that I can sing. I've gone to events before, and they literally would call me up and say, sing one for us. I'm saying, I don't sing. Oh, yeah, you do. You play. I said, do you really think that singing and playing are the same thing? One is done with my hands and one is done with my voice. I talk, I don't sing. You don't want me to sing, unless you want the event to end abruptly. But I was invited to sing the national anthem at Lambeau Field. And now, as Paul Harvey would say, the rest of the story. During the 2004 presidential election, all Republican governors were summoned to go out on the campaign trail and campaign in a barnstorming of America for President Bush's re-election. Mike Rounds, who was then the governor of South Dakota, Dirk Kempthorne, who was then the governor of Idaho, and I were one of the teams, because we all went in teams of 3 or 4 governors. They would put us on jets and we'd fly 7 to 8 events a day, campaigning for the president over a period of about a week. One of our stops was in Wisconsin. We went to about 4 Wisconsin cities, one to Michigan and several other Midwest places, and we ended one of our days in Green Bay. It was the last rally we had of the evening. It was over at about 7 o'clock. I turned to them and I said, you know, we ought to go out to Lambeau Field. There's a restaurant out there called Curly's, and we should go out to Lambeau and maybe have dinner at Curly's. That'd be pretty cool. It'd be a little different than just going to McDonald's again. So we had our troopers call. They found out there was room and they were still open, so we went out there. While we were having dinner, all the troopers got together. They started talking to the security staff at Curly's, who then talked to the staff over at the stadium. And they came to our table and said, would you guys like to tour Lambeau Field? Well, heck yeah. Now, this was a Tuesday night. Obviously, there's not a game going on. These guys has keys. So we finished our meal. I think by the time we got there, 8, it's probably after 10 o'clock. So the dudes with the keys, they open the place up. We walk in, we go through the locker rooms, we see Super Bowl trophies. It was awesome. I mean, we were in places that stadium you guys have never been, I'm pretty sure, maybe Governor Walker. We went out in the field. Now, by now it's close to 11 o'clock. We toured the field. I went over to one of the security guys and said, excuse me a minute, do that favor. He said, what? I said, ask us to sing the national anthem. He still just stared at me like I hit my head on one of the bleachers. I said, dude, trust me. This has nothing to do with anything other than a little thing going on in my head here. I said, just humor me. He said, okay, would you guys sing the national anthem? I said, we would be delighted to. So I told Kempthorne and Rounds, I said, guys, come on out. We're going to the 50-yard line. We're going to sing the national anthem. They looked at me. They thought I was nuts. I said, trust me, this is an experience of a lifetime. Nobody's ever going to ask you to do this when there are people here. So we walk out of the 50-yard line after 11 o'clock at night, and to the top of our lungs, we belt out the national anthem of the United States, hands over our hearts. And as we left, I said, guys, you can tell the world that you were invited to sing the national anthem. Let me invite you to do something even more important than that, and something that will have a far greater impact. When RJ comes up and asks you to give generously, as if you're singing the national anthem at Lambeau Field. Do it with the same vigor with which you would do that. And this will be an incredible evening. Thank you, and God bless you.